Hello everybody. Hey, I'm gonna do the cutting video and show you guys how to do all of the template cutting and separate all the pieces for the queen size, the Basket of Posies pattern. In our last video, our live video, I actually went through and showed you how to pair up all of the templates. So if you go back and refer to that, we've already sorted and clipped all the templates to the fabric pieces. And so now we're going to go through and do the cutting, and then we're going to separate the pieces out into bags today. All right. And I don't know how long this video is going to be, so we're going to take several breaks throughout the video that will make it easier for you guys to actually sit down and watch the different parts. So anyway, you're going to need your book. And remember, we have our bags, and so I have all 4 bags here. I don't have a template bag because we've already sorted out the templates. However, I will need a T-template bag, and I have this fabric set inside of my bag D5 for my T-templates because we'll be putting some other pieces in here. All right, so we're going to take these bags and we're just going to set them aside right here. And we're going to actually start on page 3 of your instructions. And in the booklet that we are in is the Basket of Posies. It's the queen size border. And we're going to start with fabric D1. If you guys if you cut your fabrics out according to the Quiltster guide, if you printed it out, then you should have all of this cut into the size widths that we have. And these were supposed to be 4 20-inch strips. So we're just gonna find my pin cushion here so we can get rid of it. And this very first template that I'm going to show you is a little bit different template than what we have in a lot of pieces. And so anyway, as we unfold it, we'll show you what it is. I'm not going to worry about pressing my fabric because it's going to get pressed a whole bunch of times anyway. But anytime you're cutting fabric, you need to make sure that all your fabric is stacked right side up. Now, if you guys want to press everything, that's totally up to you. I don't worry too much about the pressing until I'm actually ready to start sewing. And the only thing I'll probably do any pressing with at all are those center lines right here so that it will lay down. So I'm going to stack all 4 of these fabrics right side up. And again, it doesn't have to be perfectly stacked, but I do try to get one edge that's all lined up along one edge of either the top or the bottom, and then one side. And then if I have to move the fabric as I go, at least I have something there that I'm working off of for the edge. Whoops, I'm going to flip this one over. I try to keep all of the, if I'm working with cottons that have a selvage, I try to keep the fabric stacked in the same direction. And even though it's not a real directional piece, I can tell if I start flipping the selvage sides back and forth, then I know that I'm getting some of my fabrics upside down. Okay, so we're going to grab a glue or the starch pin, and I might have to fill it. And I'm just going to run the starch pin right along this main fold. And so I think there's plenty in there. We'll run out probably before the day's over. So I'm going to fold back 3 of these fabric pieces, and then I'm just going to run my starch pin right along that fold. So if this is where you're going to probably find your advantage of actually pressing these down a little bit. And I can't tell you which is faster. This works for me, so I don't have to keep going back and forth to an iron. And it works really, really good. And take that sticky off. And then this is going to be our very last piece here. Get this. All right, so that's going to lay down good enough for us. The other thing you want to make sure of is that you have a sharp blade and that you have a bucket full of paper clips, because we're going to be using lots of paper clips today. So I'm going to grab, in my instructions it told me I needed template layout sheet number 1 and template layout sheet number 2. And it kind of looks like these pieces. I like to follow the picture because we've set in CAD, we set the position of all of these papers according to the picture. So this one's going to go like that, all right? And then there's supposed to be 2 more pieces, and those are my T-template D4, and I'm not sure if my T-template, this is bag D4, I may have put them in this bag, which they are right here. So these are my T-template. So this is a D4 and a D3. So I need to get 2 of the D3 and 2 of the D4. Okay. So what I like to do is, if I look at something and I can see that it's going to be kind of a tight fit, then what I try to do is I'll take 2 templates and flip one of them upside down. I also have a T-template D5, and all of them are the same size. So we're going to start right here in the middle, and I'm going to put some repositionable glue on the back side of my first piece of paper, and I'm going to lay that right in the middle where that crease was, and get that to stick down to my paper a little bit, or my fabric. All right, so those are in position, and then I'm going to put a little repositionable glue on the back side of this one. Set that one in there like that, and then I'm going to pull this one over, and I'm going to look to see. So see, there's plenty of room there. I can set it like this as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do is actually just cut these pieces out and then save these, and we'll get the 2 cuts off of that. Okay, so I'm going to grab one of my curved rulers, and we're just going to take this, and that one's actually got too much of a curve, so we're going to try one of the other ones. That one's better. I love these curved rulers for doing these big cuts. Now we're going to take and cut this off. And I'm going to cut this right down the middle. And that's looking pretty good. And I don't need to cut this upper part off because it's going to get cut off when we start doing the cutting anyway. So I'm going to put some paper clips along this curved edge. Keep that lined up the best I can. And you're going to find that this is a little bit of a tight fit along both edges, but these templates are big enough, so just make sure that you're all of those fabrics stacked along the edge. And now that I have that clipped together, I'm going to actually take my curved ruler and we're going to cut again. So we're going to take this, and it doesn't have to be a perfect cut. Basically what we want to do is get the pieces, because these are used for paper piecing. Take that piece. I'm just going to stack the template pieces for now over here, and then we're going to take this one, and I'm going to put some repeat on the back of this, and I'm going to line up this top edge to make sure we're on the fabric. Move it over a little bit, and then I'm going to cut my first edge there. Okay. Now these are T templates, so these have to be cut perfectly. So I'm going to take my leaf ruler and I'm going to cut, and I'm going to give myself a little bit extra room here. Okay. And then we're going to take this one and now I'm going to move this piece over like this. So I'm doing kind of what I call a rough cut to start with, and then I'll come back and do my final cut. All right, so I have 8 layers underneath there, and so the very first thing I want to do is I'm going to cut this side right along this edge, and it's going to be right on the line because this is an actual T template. Now before I do this, I do want to bring to your attention that we need to sew this TRP line, and that TRP line should be sewn before I actually trim. All right, so I don't have my machine set up. I wanted the room on the table, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to cut this, but right on the line. But you guys really need to come in here and sew that TRP line through all 8 layers, and I've demoed it in some of the other demos. before you actually trim this down to the correct size. But we are going to take this one and cut it right down to the correct size, just so you can see. So there's my first cut. Now what I do is I grab my paper clips before I cut the others, and I put a couple paper clips along that edge so that that edge does not move. And then we're going to take and do a cut on that one. I'm going to go ahead and cut that smart corner, and then I'm going to do the curved piecing, and I'm going to put another paper clip right along that edge. And then I'm just going to use my leaf ruler. Now realize that I have a sharp blade in there. I like to change my blades before I actually start cutting on a quilt, so that I'm always working with a sharp one when I'm cutting through several layers. So I have a pretty sharp blade there, and now we have this piece, and it's cut exactly down to the size, and I needed 8 of those, so I have 8 layers. So we're going to set that. Now we're going to do this one over here, and I'll put a couple paper clips along this edge. And we're going to do the same thing again. Notice that my paper isn't sticking down very well because I didn't put a lot of glue on it. I'm pretty stingy with the glue. All I want is just enough to hold the paper on there until I can get some paper clips in place. That way I don't get a lot of that repositionable glue built up on my fabric. So now we're going to take this, and I'm cutting right on the line, and these are actually paper piecing templates here, so I can cut right on the line and not worry about anything, just get them cut off. Right, and now we're going to cut the pieces apart. I'm going to put a couple more paper clips on to hold everything in place. And so and do our first long curve. Set that aside. Then we're going to do this curve. And I think my other rulers are going to work better for this. And then this one, we're going to put a couple paper clips on it. And again, these pieces are for paper piecing that I'm here, so I don't have to worry about accuracy with the cutting. It just has to be close. And what I'm doing here is I'm sliding the ruler. Okay. Now we're going to cut this piece, and I'm just going to double check and make sure my edges are lined up. And they are. And I'm going to move it over just a tad, but I don't want to get any of the salvage in there. So I'm going to take that. And I left about, I'm going to move it just a touch more. Give myself a little bit more room. And then we're going to take this, and I'm going to give myself about 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 an inch. Well, it's more like 1/4 of an inch of play room here. Okay. Now we're going to take this piece and we're going to set it on here. And all right, And then we're going to cut along here. And I'm going to put some paper clips on it, or I should say, yeah, these are paper clips. And I'm going to actually sew those TRP lines before I finish trimming it down. But at this point, we can actually take that and put it back into the bag. So we have our template pieces. We're going to read our instructions, and it's going to tell us where to put all of our pieces. So it tells me that I want to place D1 through D4. So this is a D1. This is a D3 section. And that must be one of these that's probably, this is my, because they're all cut apart now, so we have to kind of look at what we're doing. So I know that it says I need template D7 1, which is this one, and then this is D8 1, and then this one is D1 1, and this is D2 1, D3, and D4. And it says all of these pieces go into bag D4. So we're going to take this bag right here, and we're going to fold all these pieces up. And slip them inside this bag. And fold that again. So that's in bag D4, and then it tells me to put these pieces back into this bag D5. So we're going to slip them back in here right now. Okay. All right. So we're going to take a short break. You guys can take a short break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to do the next 2 or 3 pieces. All right. All right, we're going to work with our baskets, and I'm actually going to use the piece basket, and so I have 3 pieces here that have to be cut for that. Okay, so the very first one is fabric D2, and the pieces that go on here are units D6 and D5. And if you need to check your instructions, you probably have you may have a correction. Some of the patterns have already been corrected because as soon as we figured it out, we went in there. So some of the patterns that we have out there have already been corrected. So let's take this, and I have 2 layers of fabric here. It told me to have my 2 cuts. They're 7 3/4 inches, and we're just going to cut this one off here, right there along the selvage. Now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to cut the next one. And if I look at my instructions, there's a picture there, and it actually tells me I can cut all the way up. And I have plenty of room, so I'm going to give myself some play room, and I'm going to give myself about a 1/2 inch cut of play there. All right. After I get that cut, then I can just take this piece and flip it over like this. And then we're going to cut right along this edge. Okay. And now we're going to put paper clips on it. There we go. And I'm supposed to cut 4 of each one. So that was, I have 4 under my unit 6. And then we're going to take this one and we're going to do the same thing with this. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of playroom because I have lots of fabric left over. And we're going to slice here. And then we're just going to flip the whole piece and flip it over for the second cut. And I like to bring the fabric and everything with it rather than just flipping the templates. If I have to worry about it being a really tight cut, if I don't have any playroom with my fabric, then normally I'll just flip the templates and get it cut right down to the size. All right, so we have this one done. Now, in your instructions, it actually tells you to go through and do cut line 1 and cut line 2. However, I like to leave them together like this and put them in the bag, and then when I'm ready to sew the pieces up, then I come in and I just go quickly through cut line 1, cut line 2, and I get rid of my excess. That way I don't have to worry about my pieces fraying if they're in the bag for a long time, and the bags set and store a lot better when you leave the pieces as a complete unit here, the whole thing. I'm going to go ahead and cut this corner off right now, and then we're going to take these pieces, put a paper clip on each group of a section templates, and then we're going to take these, and it tells me that these go into bag D3. So let's find bag D3, which is right here, and we're going to slip them inside there. Okay, now we're going to quickly cut the next piece. Because I'm doing this, I have to cut these little pieces for my veins, and I'm not going to be using cutting option 2 because that's for fussy cutting. So we're going to go down here to fabric D3, and if I just look at this, these don't have really a right or a wrong side, but I need 8 pieces. And so I'm going to quickly just leave it folded and cut the selvage off. I have plenty of leftover here, so I'm going to take this, and all I need to do is just take this template, and I need 4 pieces. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4 layers of fabric right here. So there's 1, yep. So we're going to take this one, and so 2, 4, 6, 8. So that's 4 layers, and then we're going to take this one, and then before I put it away, I'm going to go ahead and stack everything right side up. Sometimes it's faster to restack them than it is to stretch all of the fabric out over your table. Okay, so now I'm going to put a piece of a paper clip on this, and we're going to put it back into the bag, and it says this goes into bag D3, which makes sense because it's for the basket. Right? So the next that goes on, so let's put this aside. So the next template is actually these veins, and these veins are part of one of the basket too, but there's this little piece, and it's called this is my template layout sheet number 8. And if you look at fabric D8, it has the veins, and then right along the side, it has this cut out of it, all right? So I'm supposed to have one 12-inch strip here. And I'm going to use this layout sheet and cut 4 rectangles. Okay? And each one of these pieces is going to be glued on to my fabric. Now, I'm going to put the glue, repositional glue, in the areas that I'm going to cut off. All right? And then we're going to take the next one. And then I'm going to put a little bit of what I'm doing here is I'm looking to see where it's going to be cut away. And then we have this. Right. And this piece, it tells me that I need to do 2 cuts for this. So I'm going to take and cut my first cut. I have plenty of fabric, so I'm just going to cut 2 small strips here. And then I'm going to stack them. And we're going to put a little bit of glue on the back of that. And then I'm going to trim it up just a little bit more. And so this is my template D8. I'm going to put a couple paper clips on it. And this goes into bag D3 as well with the basket. And then these pieces, we'll finish cutting these. All right. Now, on these pieces, if you read your instructions, it tells you before you cut anything apart to come in and sew your TRP lines. All right. So since we're just doing cutting and I don't have my machine, I'm actually going to stack all 4 of these. And then we'll come back and we'll sew the TRP lines later. And once you understand the purpose of doing the TRP lines, you can decide when it is you want to sew them. But I'm basically going to sew them right before I get ready to start doing all of the curved piecing. So for now, I'm just going to take these 4 pieces and I'm going to put them in the bag that they're required. So let's read and what bags it tells me. So these pieces go into bag D3. And I think that's all of my pieces for D3, so we're just going to close that bag up. And then these pieces actually go into bag D4. And we're going to slip those in there. All right, and I think that's all that goes into bag D4. There might be a few more pieces. So we're going to pause really quick and I'm going to get ready for the next one. Okay, we're back. Now, I thought that I was done with the basket, but I actually had 2 more pieces, so let's go ahead and finish up the rest of the bottom of the basket. And these pieces are actually fabric D5, and I'm supposed to have template layout sheet number 4, template layout sheet number 5. And if I look at my picture, it looks like I have to cut 2 of these and 2 of these. And so let's put a little bit of glue on the bottom of each one. And then we're going to put our first piece on. And I'm going to cut. Then we'll flip that piece over like this. And then we're going to take this one. Let's cut the selvage off. And I'm just going to trim this up just a little bit. There. There. And then let's put some paper clips on it. We'll put some paper clips on this one. And I'm pretty sure both of these pieces, oh, actually it says that template D7-2, that's these 2 pieces go in bag D4. So I wasn't done with either one of those bags. So this one goes in this bag. And this one, this is my D5-5 and D5-6 goes into this bag. Now I know I am done with my baskets. So those bags should be complete. So now we're going to start with fabric D6. And these pieces, fabric D6 and D7, are actually for the big spikes that go around the outside of the quilt. So let's look and see what we're supposed to do with this. So I'm supposed to have cut 12 7.5 inch by 42 inch strips. And it looks like we haven't done that quite yet. So in Quiltster, I do want to explain something to you. So why did Quiltster not tell me to cut these into my 7.5 inch strips? The reason why is because there's different template pieces that have to be cut from this fabric. And if in Quiltster, if I split these, then you have the ability to break it and you could have put them all on a different colors. The problem is these pieces are actually the spikes that go around like this, and they have to be on the same fabric. And so when we have to combine template layout sheets to go on with one color, then we give you a larger cut size, and then you have to come in and do what we call a subcutting on that. So when I look at my instructions, and you want to read them really carefully because sometimes those subcuts are different sizes as well. And when I read this one, it says to cut each of the 22.5 inch strips are subcut into 3 7.5 inch strips. So it looks like these are all the same size. So that will make it easier. So I'm going to check my cuts, and they don't have to be perfect cuts, but it looks like we have pretty nice cut fabric here. So I'm going to take my big ruler and I'm going to measure over, and I'm going to double check because I always screw up when it says 7.5 and 7 3/4. So I'm at 7.5 here, and it says 3 7.5. So there's my first cut. And remember, it said 3 7.5 from each strip, and I have 4 strips here. So my next 7.5 inch strip is going to come out at 15, and then that leaves my last strip 7.5 inches. And I'm just gonna double check. Sometimes I'm not very accurate with my math. I have a tendency to cut before I do the math. Okay, so I do have my 3 strips from each one cut, so that will give me a total of 9 strips. And then it tells me fabric desiccant. So we have the 12 strips, and we want to stack them right side up. So we're going to stack all 12 of these together. Actually, it says 1 stack with 8 strips and 1 stack with 4 strips. So this one is actually 4 strips, and these are stacked together. So let's go ahead, and while we're stacking these, all right, so we're going to get our layout sheets. And this one calls, the very first one calls for template layout sheet number 9. And it looks like I have 2 of those. And the reason why is because we have, if I stacked all of these, that would be 16 layers of fabric. And I could cut through 16 layers of fabric with this big rotary cutter, but most people can't. And a lot of people, depending on how strong their hands are, can't even get through 8 pieces. So I'm going to show you guys some little tricks here, because if you're one of these individuals that can't cut through 8 layers, I'm going to show you how to make your template layout sheets work. We provide a template layout sheet for every 12 layers of fabric. And if it takes more than 12 layers, then we divide that and we give you 2. And so then we divide those layout sheets equally. Okay, so let's take, and we're going to put the first one right here. And then we're going to take the second one. And we're going to put it right here. Okay. And this is going to be waste. And you can tell that the reason we had to go the extra fabric is because there's not enough fabric here to use that up. So that's why we had to go to the extra strips of fabric. I cut the selvage off. Let's go ahead and we're going to go like this, and then we're going to take this one. All right, so I do want to show you guys something. If you can cut through 16 layers, then I would just take all of these and put them together like that. All right, you do kind of want to pay attention a little bit in your instructions, because these pieces might go to one unit and these pieces might go to the other unit. And if I cut them all together, then I'm going to lose my layout sheets. So I'm going to actually look at what they go to, and I believe these pieces go with these. So I do want to keep these separated because I'm going to do 8 and 8 like that. Okay, I could stack them all and then run all 8 or 16 through at the same time, but that's what those pieces are for. The other thing I want to bring to your attention while we're looking at our papers is when you have these papers, these are going to set like this. And this other one is upside down. So what happens is on these paper, it's my spikes that are going to be the dark fabric. And on these papers, it's going to be the background that's going to be the dark fabric. So that's the other reason why we have this other layout sheet, is because it has to be, it's for these pieces rather than making these longer to where we could just cut up the whole strip. These are actually a different size template than these, okay? So when you look at it, it keeps the dark all the way, even though these are my background pieces and these are my spikes. It is very easy to make the mistake to pick these up and just throw and cut the spikes and get the pieces in the wrong place. And some of our templates, our foundation sheets, will actually, they fit both ways, and so you want to be really careful with that, because we've had to make these over several times ourselves, because I look at them and I'm like, okay, these are my spikes, and then you pick up the next one and you just run the blue in the same as the spike instead of paying attention to where your colors are supposed to go. So watch out for that. I'm going to put these back in this bag here, and these are going to go back in this bag. Okay. Now, I would just take these paper clips, again, rather than cut them apart, I would just take and put the paper clips on them and keep the pieces together. So we're going to go like this. And then I would put some down here. But I want to show you a trick. So let's say you can't cut through this many layers, okay? But you need to get them all cut, and you don't want to cut your layout sheet apart and then glue it back together. You can actually take this, and I'm going to just grab 4 pieces off of this stack. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to put these under here, and I'll just cut these with this. But if I want to preserve my layout sheet so I can get use it multiple times, I can take this and I can grab a fold template, and I can place this fold template on cut line 1, and I can fold my paper back, and then I just take my ruler and I cut right along that section, and then I just keep that together, and we put this on number 2 line, and then we put it on number 3 line, So it is a little bit slower to do it this way, but it allows you to move the template layout sheet from, instead of stacks of 8, you can do stacks of 4, you can do stacks of 2, and then when you're done, you stack all your pieces, and the last cut you make, you would actually cut with add the template layout sheet to it. So we just have more pieces here. All right, so I have all my pieces here. I'm gonna just take that, and then we're gonna actually go ahead and cut this group, because this group has a layout sheet on it. So I'm gonna come in here, and I'm gonna actually flip this so that I'm in the same direction. So this was my cut line 1. We're going to cut line 2. So I'm cutting through 12 layers on this one. Okay, so now we're just going to take, and we would put this group of templates and add it to this. So this is just kind of a cool trick, and helps put those people that can't cut through several layers of fabric at once, and they can still get a layout sheet without having to glue it back together over and over and over again. So then we're going to take this stack, and now I've got all 16 layers under one template. All right, and these pieces are supposed to go in bag D1. So that's this grouping right here. So this is why I like to leave them all together until I'm ready to sew, because now when I put them in here, they kind of get messed up a little bit. And I have to reorganize them when I pull them out of my bag. But we went through our demo. So now let's go ahead and open this piece up. And I'm going to show you another little trick here. So I've been actually coming right here and flattening that piece in the middle. But if you want to speed things up, you can look at your template pieces, and I can actually cut this end and this end and leave my biggest chunk together here. And then I don't have to waste the time to press that piece. So I'm going to cut my selvage off down here. And then we're going to cut the selvage off on this end. And I'm going to line these up a little bit better. So I have my top edge is pretty straight. And put a little bit of repositionable glue on there. I'm going to do my first cut. And then I'm going to take this and then we're going to put our paper clips on. All right, so I'm going to take this leftover fabric that I have for both of these colors, and I'm going to put it in one of the bags. So if I have a mistake and somebody accidentally sews them in the wrong place, we have all of the fabrics and we don't have to find them. These pieces here go into my bag D2. So I'm not going to cut them apart until I'm ready to sew them. So for now, we're just going to slip it in here. And I'm going to take the excess fabric and slip it in here as well. All right, so we have one more piece. This is an extra layout sheet. And I'm just going to put it in the bag. That's the one that I didn't cut up. Now we're going to work with fabric number D7. And it looks like fabric D7, these are cut at 15.5-inch strips. And we have to do a subcut on there, and it calls for 2 7 3/4-inch strips. And it looks like this is a really tight fit, so we're going to have to use our starch pen and open up those seams. So we're going to start right here. Actually, I'm going to cut these all individually first into my 7 3/4 inch strips. That way I can just do one cut. So let's grab our ruler, and I'm going to reread that, and it says 7 3/4. So here's 7 3/4. Going to be right there, and then I'm just going to measure this. And the reason I like to measure it is because sometimes I might be just like a 1/8 of an inch off or something because I can't get them to straighten out. And if that's the case, then it allows me to be able to fudge that difference between my shortage between all of the strips. And this one actually comes out right at 7 3/4. I'm going to move this top piece down just a hair to get that straightened up. So I only have to make 2 cuts there. Cut them both into 2 pieces. All right, now we're going to stack them, and it says to stack all of these. Yep, it says to stack all 8 pieces. So and for those of you that have been following this, I actually got finished gluing all the applique onto all of the center block groups yesterday, and last night I started doing my applique. So I should be able to have all the applique done on the center groups by the time we have our next live video. All right, so we have those all aligned. And because I'm looking at the picture in here for these, it's a pretty tight fit. And I want to put my template layout sheet number 11 is going to be the first one. And I have 2 of those. So this one's going to fit here. And then this one's going to fit here. So those are my 2 11s. And they need to be pretty close. And then I'm just going to make sure that this is all fitting. And the reason why is because we figure for 42 inches, but sometimes by the time you cut the selvage off of some of these cotton fabrics, they don't always fit. And it looks like I have plenty of excess there, so we're good. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut my selvage off of this part here. And then I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to cut right along this edge. And since I have a little bit of playroom, I'm going to give myself just about 1/8 of an inch extra. And then I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to trim that. And because I know I can cut through 16 layers, there's no reason for me to cut up both layout sheets. And I like to keep them all stacked together. And so we're going to take this and I'm going to take that piece and I'm going to save this one, template layout sheet number 9, because I do have to do a demo. So I'm just going to clip all of these pieces together. So when I do the paper piecing cutting, I can actually just put 4 pieces underneath one of my layout sheets, and then I can cut the other 12 together with the other layout sheet. And there we go. So we're going to set these aside. And now we're going to cut the last piece on here. And I'm just going to see how that fits on there best. Doesn't really make a difference. It's just a little bit of a different angle. And since I have to put a paper clip on all of them, I'm just going to clip it and not worry about putting a repositionable glue on it, because I really don't need it, because we have to have the paper clips to keep all of our sections together. Okay, now we're going to clean off this edge. And then we're going to clean off this edge. And you can see there's nothing left over, so don't make mistakes. All right, so these pieces go in bag D1, the D9 template layout sheet. I'm going to read that. Actually, this is template layout sheet number 11. And so these are for unit D9, so those go into bag D1, which is this bag. So I have everything I need for those pieces. And then these pieces are going to go in with this bag, because these are the template layout sheet number 12, and these for the D10 units. So these units are the ones that are the inside, which are a reverse from those. All right, so we have those ready to go. Now we're going to cut these last pieces. And actually, I'm going to do a rough cut on these. So I have these pieces cut. And this tells me I have to have 8 9-inch strips. Okay, so we should have 4 of these strips here. And if I look at my strips here, and I'm going to measure these, and I have, these are 18-inch pieces, so my 8-inch strips, when I look at them, they're pretty tight fit. Okay, sometimes when I look at my pictures like that and I find that it's pretty close, even though it's enough, I like to, when I'm doing T-templates, sometimes I like to leave all of the fabric together rather than. So the downfall of that is I can only cut through 4 layers. But I'm going to place my templates and see if it makes a difference on how much room we have. So if I go like this, and like this, and it really isn't going to make a lot of difference. So I'm going to actually, because it looks like there's plenty of room there after measuring those. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these into my 8-inch strips. But I'm going to do them singly rather than stacking them, because if I get one of them off just a little bit, I could have an issue making sure that they fit. So these are supposed to be cut into 9-inch strips, so we'll just lay it out here. And I'm going to cut my first 9-inch strip. I'm going to cut another 9-inch strip. Because what we're cutting out of these are T-templates, and T-templates you have to cut accurately with everything, so that's why we're doing a little bit extra fussy cutting here. So now what I want to do is I want to cut my melon template first and then leave all of the leftover stuff for the big templates. So I'm going to put my first piece right down here and put a little bit of glue on it. And it looks like I can just cut right along that edge there. So, and I'm going to cut those just a little bit bigger because I do have a TRP line there that I want to cut. All right. So we're going to grab this ruler here. And I have to sew that TRP line before I finish cutting. So I'm just going to put it back in the bag with the rest of them. Now on this piece right here, because this does have to be cut very carefully, I'm going to actually pause the video and I'm going to press these strips together. One of the things you'll find is when you actually steam press your strips together, they don't have a tendency to move as much. And I don't want you guys to have to sit here and watch me press. So I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to get my iron set up and get these all pressed. And then we'll come back and we'll put these on and I'll show you guys how to do the cutting on these. All right? So we're going to pause for a minute. All right, you guys. So I've got these pressed. And in the process of pressing, I actually put some in the edges here. So I have a nice straight line. And I starched them at the same time. So started, I'm going to actually trim and make sure that everything here is trimmed perfectly straight along both edges, because I don't want to accidentally bump one of these up against the edge and then have one of the pieces underneath not be all the way out to the edge. So I'm just going to double check and start out with a straight line, and then I'm going to check it to make sure that everything is straight, and it is except right there, but we won't be cutting that piece, so I'm good. So I'm also going to clean this edge up, so I have to move my paper clip. So I'm going to put another flower pin right along this edge. And then we're going to clean this edge up. And that's doing a good job there. Move this down. Okay, so let's go to the instructions. I have two pieces. There's actually 4 templates. And if you read the instructions, it tells you you have 4 templates. You're supposed to divide the strips into 2 sets of strips. And I actually have all 4 stacked, which is incorrect. I need to change that graphic. The other thing it tells you is I have the wrong letter. The D5 template is the only one we use for the outside, and I had D4 underneath it, but that's actually a D5. So we cut the 8 D5 templates, and now I'm going to work with T-template D9 and T-template D8 on my first stack. And I trimmed right along the outside edge of this, so I can actually butt this up right along that edge, right? But I'm going to put this one down here. I didn't clean up around here because I can do that when I do my final cut. And we are going to put some glue to hold this in position. Right along that edge. Let's move it down. Okay, and now this one has to set so that this point comes into the inside. And I have a nice clean straight edge there, so I'm going to push this right out to that edge as well. So let's put some glue on the back side of this. Right? So I have both of those set up perfectly straight. And I am actually going to clean up that edge one more time. And now I'm going to put my paper clips along there. And if you want, you can use some flower pins there as well, if you prefer the flower pins versus the paper clips. I'm actually going to go ahead and move that flower pin up. And I think I have another one right here. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing down here at the bottom. So let's go ahead and put a flower pin on both ends of this. And then we're going to cut. And I'm not going to do a perfect cut on these right now, because I want to sew my TRP lines along the inside. So I'm going to cut outside about 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so I'm going to set that piece aside, and then we're going to cut this one. Okay, so I'm going to put a couple more paper clips on these. And then I'm going to take them and sew the TRP lines. And then I'll finish trimming all the way around. But I don't do that last trim until right before I'm ready to actually assemble these. That way I don't have to worry about any of this fraying outside here, and it stays together really clean, and I don't have a whole bunch of tails from the threads fraying. So we're going to take these pieces, and these tell me, I think all of them go back in bag 5, they do. And while we took a break, I actually did sew the TRP lines on those center pieces. And I do want to show you a little trick. I think I might have showed you this in one of my other videos. But I can actually take and mark right along that line. And if I get a piece of chalk, then I can fold this back and I can mark the next one. And then I fold this one back and I mark the next one. So when I'm done, I can take my TRP lines, the threads out, and I have all those marks on the front and the back side, as long as I'm using a really light pencil or chalk along that edge. And then I know where that center is. So let's put these in here. And just to reassure you guys, I will go in and fix that correction, but that where it says D4 in that paragraph, that's actually D5. And we cut all 8 of our D5 pieces. That was the first piece we cut. And we'll put the correction out on the graphic, and I'll get the graphic divided the way it was supposed to be divided. All right. So now we're going to put this piece on. And again, I'm going to clean off the top so that I know that that's a straight edge that I can line up to the edge of my fabric. And I don't need to do the inside, just the outside. So we already cut the D5 templates off. So right now I have quite a bit of variation on this bottom. So I'm going to actually cut a straight line. And I think that will do it if I cut right there. So that's at 14 here. And this is... So I can cut straight now. And I'm going to check, and I did get that straight. So let's put, so the one we want to put on this side is, that's going to go there, and this one's going to go here. So I can move that one in here. So I'm going to put some glue on the back of this. And line that up to the top. And I'm going to give myself just a little bit of hangover on that, because I can come back in and trim it again with the paper on it. And let's put some flower pins in it. Okay, now we're going to clean up this edge before we cut. Oh, we need to go down a little bit further. I think that caught that bottom one. Put some little bit of glue on the back of it. Get that to stretch out. And that gives me a little bit of play room. So I'm leaving myself about a 1/16 of an inch right along that top, and I can come back and it still gives me enough room for my 2 templates. So let's put some flower pins on both ends of this, and then we're going to cut it apart. That was a pretty tight fit right there, so I didn't want to cut into my seam allowance. Okay, so we're going along this edge, and then we're going to fold it up. We're going to sew our TRP lines, and then we'll come back and do our final trim on it right before we're ready to sew. There we go. I'll fold this and this. We'll put those in our bag. All right, so let's go over what we have. So we have a bag D1 and bag D2, and those bags are for our big border pieces, okay? And everything's complete on those. And then we have a bag D3, and these are all my basket pieces. So those actually make all of the paper piecing for these units right here. And then this bag D4 that makes all of the paper piecing that sits underneath the flowers, the applique, and this includes the handle. So when you look at these, that handle that's up underneath the flowers, that's actually where these veins come from, and that's actually pieced together, all right? And then this bag, these are all my background pieces. So these pieces fit in here and out here. Okay, so it's basically I have some of those and some of these pieces in there. And that's what's fitting in these pieces. And we're all cut out. So we will probably get this video posted right after Christmas, and that should give you guys about a week to actually look at it and try to get your pieces cut before we have our next class. And in our next workshop, we're going to start with the paper piecing. I'm going to show you how to do the paper piecing for the outside units, and then we're going to work with the baskets and show you how to do the baskets. And if there's time, we'll actually lay out some of the applique on some of the basket units. So I'm going to do a little bit of piecing ahead of the next video, but we will cover most of the major stuff for the border in our next video. And then the very last video is all about assembly. All right? I think we're done for the day.